Welcome, traveler. You've reached the edge of the day and the edge of time. Out there, the world is still turning. But in here, in this quiet space, time opens like a hidden path beneath your feet. The past isn't rushing. It's not loud. It's patient. It waits in worn-out sandals and cracked stone walls, in ink-stained scrolls and flickers of firelight, waiting for someone like you to notice. So take a breath. Let the weight of the present ease from your shoulders. You don't need to keep up. Just drift with the story, however far it goes. And if you find comfort in this quiet wandering, you're welcome to like the video or subscribe. It helps others find their way here too. Now, let's step quietly into the past.
We'll begin with what it truly felt like to be an average person in Edo, Japan. The sense of rice straw and charcoal, the strict hierarchy that governed even your clothing, the struggle to find enough water to bathe, and the long ceremonial days that passed with little privacy. Then we'll meet one of Edo's towering figures, Tokugawa Ieyasu, his rise, his vision, and the iron firm peace he carved across Japan. Not through conquest, but through clever alliances and quiet intimidation. In the third part, we'll step into the libraries, temples, and hidden archives to uncover some of Edo's quieter mysteries, its lost inventions, untranslatable poetry, and the rituals that once defined time itself. And lastly, we'll float up the river and into the private world of Edo's elite, the nobles, the daimyo, and the merchants who lived behind lacquered gates and sliding paper walls, protected by layers of etiquette and luxury. The hardship of routine in one of the most ordered cities in history. Imagine it's just before dawn. You stir awake on a thin futon laid over tatami mats that itch your skin ever so slightly, but which you dare not complain about. There is no mattress, of course, just the earth, a mat, and the modest wooden frame of your home. You are a merchant's apprentice, not quite poor, but far from comfortable. The air in the room is damp. You can smell the faint mildew of the wood and the lingering smoke from the hearth, extinguished many hours ago to avoid drawing too much attention from your neighbors or using more charcoal than permitted. You rise quickly and quietly, so as not to disturb your neighbors, separated from you only by thin walls made of rice paper. Even your movements must be mindful. Too heavy a step could signal disrespect. You fold your futon, sweep the floors with practiced silence, and head out to fetch water. A daily routine that is tedious, essential, and entirely yours. Water must be drawn from a communal well several streets away, and it is heavy. 2 wooden buckets, carried on a yoke across your shoulders, sway and slosh with every step. If you spill too much, there won't be enough for the morning tea or the tiny sponge bath expected before work. Breakfast is plain, a bowl of rice, perhaps a few pickled vegetables. No fire yet, so everything is eaten cold. There is no coffee, no indulgence, only routine. You wrap your kimono, careful not to wear a pattern above your station. Color and fabric are dictated by your class, and violations are not taken lightly. Even your hairstyle is controlled by centuries of custom. Your day begins with errands, delivering paper goods, sweeping storefronts, and bowing, endlessly bowing to your superiors, clients, and even passers-by. In Edo, posture and politeness matter more than speech. A misplaced glance or an improper gesture could offend. There is no freedom of expression. Gossip is dangerous. Even your family's standing depends on your obedience. Silence is safer than speech, and conformity is your shield. When nature calls, there is no indoor toilet. You walk again, this time to the neighborhood latrine. Flies gather there in buzzing clouds and the stench clings to the back of your throat, but it is necessary and normal. The afternoon is spent in study or labor. If you are lucky, your master may allow a moment of leisure, perhaps a walk along the Sumida River, or the simple pleasure of observing the carp that swim in the canal gutters. You may pass a kabuki theater, but as an apprentice, you do not yet earn enough to attend. Your body grows weary, but the day is not done. Before evening, you must assist in closing the shop, pulling wooden shutters, sweeping the street in front, and locking up the wares. Respect for order includes even the street. You return home by lantern light, careful again to move quietly, to avoid any conflict. Your reward is a small evening meal and the soft glow of the oil lamp, one wick, one flame, shared with others in your room. As you lie down once more on your futon, your back aches and your knees throb, but there is no complaint, only stillness. Outside the city murmurs softly crickets, distant laughter, the occasional footsteps of a night watchman tapping to wooden sticks, and you breathe, the slow, deliberate breath of someone who survived another day in Edo. Each sound is familiar, predictable, even comforting. The wooden clack of the night patrol, known as the Yuriki or Doshin, signals safety, a reminder that even in darkness Edo is watched, guarded, ordered. Your neighbors are already asleep, their breaths shallow and even. Families pressed shoulder to shoulder in cramped tenements. Privacy is not a concept here, not in the physical sense. Paper walls don't muffle argument or conceal grief, but emotional privacy. Now that is sacred. You do not ask questions, you do not intrude. Everyone wears a face suited to their role and keeps the truth beneath the surface. The streets of Edo during the day are alive with shouts, wheels, and the squeak of wooden carts. But now they rest, bathed in darkness, broken only by the flicker of a lantern outside the neighborhood shrine. Perhaps a cat slinks by, lean, silent, unclaimed. You stare at the ceiling, or rather, at the dark outline of wooden beams overhead. Your day, though filled with labor, was not chaotic. In Edo, chaos is a threat. The city, one of the largest in the world at the time, runs not on freedom, but on ritual, on rhythm. From the shogun's palace to the humblest food stall, everyone has a place, and that place must be honored. The law touches every aspect of life, not just criminal law but sumptuary law. Rules that tell you what you may wear, what you may eat, and how your home may appear from the outside. You cannot build a house taller than your superiors. You cannot decorate more elegantly than your rank allows. Even the width of your obi, the sash that holds your kimono, is prescribed by custom. You follow these rules not because you agree with them, but because they hold society together like the threads of silk in a well-made garment. The weight of these invisible rules is constant. You feel it in your bow, in your gait, in your dreams. But there are small comforts. The rhythmic rattle of a bamboo wind chime, the scent of sandalwood incense from the neighbor's altar, the way your fingers remember the knots of your obi without needing light to guide them. Life in Edo is not harsh in the way of famine or war. Indeed, the city and the country as a whole enjoys a rare peace. For over 2 centuries, no major battles disturb the land. But that peace is not free. It is purchased with restriction. You live under an elegant cage, one built not of bars, but of etiquette and expectation. For those who falter, consequences are subtle but lasting: a ruined reputation, a cold shoulder, a promotion withheld. In more serious cases, the authorities might intervene. Punishments delivered not with noise or cruelty, but with ceremony and finality. You've heard of those who were exiled, or ordered to perform seppuku, the ritual suicide reserved for those of the samurai class. Even disgrace has its place in the order. Still, you are not a samurai. You are neither noble nor nameless. You live in the narrow tier of artisans and merchants, essential to the economy, yet always lower in status than those who wielded the sword. There is irony in this. You handle silver, you trade in goods, you build wealth, but a samurai, even a poor one, may look down on you, may speak to you with authority simply by virtue of birth, and you must bow, always bow. Tomorrow will begin the same. You will wake before the bell, sweep before the sun, and prepare rice that may be shared with 3 others. You will check your geta, wooden sandals with worn straps, and hope it does not rain. Edo in the rain is beautiful, but miserable. Streets turn to mud, robes soak through. Umbrellas are expensive and delicate. You long for small pleasures: a sweet made from red bean paste, a kabuki tale whispered between friends, a few idle moments spent tracing characters on a scroll, though you cannot read all of them. You have dreams, though you do not say them aloud. And as you drift into sleep, The structure of Edo folds itself around you, rigid, ancient, and complete. The city does not change for you, but you change for it. And that, more than the labor or the silence or the hunger, is why you might not last a day. But for now, beneath the quiet beam of the night and the familiar rhythm of stillness, you sleep. The year is perhaps 1710 or 1735. You wouldn't think in Gregorian terms. The Western calendar is for foreigners. In Edo, time moves to a different rhythm. The lunar calendar, marked by imperial reigns and seasonal festivals. The current ruler is the shogun, a descendant of Tokugawa Ieyasu, whose rise in 1603 officially began the Edo period, a time of relative peace that would stretch across more than 250 years, until the Meiji Restoration in 1868. But you would not call this the Edo period. Not yet. That term belongs to future historians. For you, it is simply now, and Edo is simply the center of the world. At this point in the early 18th century, Edo has grown into one of the largest cities on Earth, with estimates placing the population around 1 million people, rivaling cities like London and Beijing. Yet there are no chimneys here, no soot-covered factories. Edo's growth has not been driven by industry, but by administration, ritual, and rule. The city is a layered organism. At its center, the sprawling Edo Castle, where the Tokugawa shogun and his elite retainers reside. Radiating outward, a meticulous structure. Upper samurai near the center, lower samurai farther out, merchants and artisans in the bustling middle districts, and then the outer edges, poor, marginal, sometimes dangerous. And then, there's you, if you are a merchant, a chunin. Your world is bound to the markets and alleyways of Nihonbashi or Asakusa, areas known for trade, for noise, and for stories. Perhaps you rise with the smell of miso soup and the sound of shutters being opened for the morning crowd. Your work begins at sunrise and ends by dusk. Everything is tracked, written with a fine brush on a ledger you keep hidden in a lacquered drawer. Your home may be no wider than 2 tatami mats across, barely 1.8 meters by 3.6 meters, but you share it with 4 people. In Edo, space is a luxury few can afford. Most homes are made of paper walls, wooden beams, and shingled roofs that burn easily. Fires are a constant threat, so frequent they are called the flowers of Edo. In 1657, the Great Mairaki Fire destroyed much of the city and took over 100,000 lives, but the city was rebuilt quickly, and again, in wood, always in wood. Tradition would not bend to practicality. Water comes not from a private tap, but from a shared well. Waste is collected by night soil men, who carry it by cart and sell it to farmers on the city's edges. There is no such thing as trash. Almost everything is reused or repurposed. Even ashes from the hearth have their place. The days are measured by bells, 6 per day rung from temple towers. The hours are named not by numbers, but by the animals of the zodiac. The hour of the ox, of the hare, of the tiger. These are unequal hours, changing with the seasons. Time stretches longer in summer, shorter in winter. You don't wear a watch, you listen, you watch the sky. The rhythm is in your body. At night, the streets belong to shadows. A curfew is enforced by torch-bearing patrols, and the gates to each cho or neighborhood are closed. Movement is recorded, outsiders questioned. This is no open city. The shogunate fears disorder more than invasion. No one may travel without permission. Every traveler must carry a pass, and every innkeeper must report their guests. This system, the gonengumi, holds households responsible for each other's conduct. If your neighbor commits a crime, you might be punished too. It encourages conformity, suspicion, and silence. Even language is marked by rank. You cannot speak to a samurai as you would to a fellow merchant. Honorifics matter, posture matters, eyes must be lowered. In Edo, status is everything, fixed not by wealth or ability, but by birth and role. You know your place, and it is not yours to change. But it is not all duty. There is beauty, too. The gentle brushwork of a woodblock print, the scent of cherry blossoms along the Sumeda River in April, the crackle of grilled eel over charcoal, sold on the corner for a handful of thin copper coins with square holes in the center. Perhaps you light a candle carved from waxy tree sap. Perhaps you place a dried chrysanthemum by the household altar, or sip weak tea in a chipped ceramic cup, its imperfections admired as part of its charm. This is Edo. This is your life. A world of formality and fire risk, of rigid status and hidden pleasures. A life of rules you cannot escape. But also a life of meaning found in repetition. In the small joys that survive under strict order. You close your eyes again. Outside, the night watchman has passed. The crickets resume their song. And somewhere, far away, the bell tolls once more. Time continues, gently and forever. The quiet architect. The life and legacy of Tokugawa Ieyasu, the man at the heart of Edo, was not born in Edo. He was born far to the west, in the province of Mikawa in the year 1543. The same year Portuguese traders first made contact with the Japanese islands, bringing with them the unfamiliar shape of the arquebus, the Christian cross, and strange European words that would find their way, eventually, into everyday speech. He was named Matsuda Takechio, and when he was born, Japan was not a country so much as a mosaic, fractured, restless, and constantly on the brink of conflict. These were the Sengoku Jidai, the warring states. A century and more of near-constant strife. Warlords, or daimyo, ruled their fiefdoms like private kingdoms, forming and breaking alliances with little regard for the emperor's distant throne. At just 6 years old, Takechio was sent away, not as a student or noble guest, but as a hostage, first to one clan, and then to another. It was common then. Children were political currency, sent across provinces as living promises of loyalty, leverage, or truce. One can imagine the boy, quiet, watching, enduring, shuffled between fortresses and guarded halls, learning how power shifted behind words, how alliances turned with seasons, how survival depended less on strength and more on patience. He would come of age in this world of uncertainty. Eventually, he would reclaim his family name, Matsuda, and later adopt a new one, Tokugawa. A symbolic gesture, linking his lineage to a noble past, or perhaps a quiet declaration that he was destined for something greater. By the 1560s, Ieyasu, as he would now be called, had allied himself with a rising star, Oda Nobunaga, a daimyo of rare vision and ruthless ambition. Nobunaga saw Japan not as fragments, but as something to unify. Ieyasu was not his equal, but he was loyal, a dependable lieutenant, cautious where Nobunaga was bold. When Nobunaga was assassinated in 1582, betrayed by his own general, it did not fall to Ieyasu to avenge him. That role passed to another man, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, a brilliant peasant soldier turned statesman, who completed the unification Nobunaga began. Ieyasu, ever patient, supported him, but he did not forget the lessons of youth. When Hideyoshi died in 1598, his young son, Hideyori, was too weak to hold the realm. Factions formed, old allies shifted, and at last Ieyasu moved. The year was 1600, at Sekigahara in a narrow valley in central Japan. The final great battle of the samurai age took place. Ieyasu led the Eastern army. His rivals, loyal to the Toyotomi cause, led the Western. On that misty morning of October 21st, the clash began. It is tempting to imagine drama, swords flashing, banners snapping in the wind. But war, even then, was not glorious. It was confusion, smoke, betrayal. Some lords changed sides mid-battle. Others failed to arrive at all. Ieyasu's strategy was not based on speed, but on certainty. He had prepared well. When it ended, he stood victorious. 3 years later, in 1603, he was granted the title of Seiyai Taishogun, barbarian subduing generalissimo. It was largely ceremonial by that time, but it came with immense authority. For the first time in centuries, Japan was largely at peace, not because of diplomacy, but because a single man had quietly outweighed all the others. He would not rule forever. In 1605, he formally stepped down, passing the title of shogun to his son Hitada, though he retained power from behind the scenes. He died in 1616 at the age of 73, an extraordinary age for the era. But by then, the system he built was already in motion, vast and deliberate. like a clock wound to run for centuries. And what a system it was. Ieyasu did not build a state of freedom. He built a state of control, a fortress in the shape of a country. To prevent rebellion, he instituted a policy known as Sankin Keitai, alternate attendance. Every daimyo in Japan was required to spend every other year in Edo, attending the shogun's court. Their wives and children remained there permanently, effectively, as hostages. The lords were free to rule their domains, but only if they paid a constant price in loyalty, time, and gold. To prevent religious unrest, Ieyasu cracked down on Christianity. Foreign missionaries, once welcomed, were now seen as threats. By the 1630s, the policy of Sakoku closed country would seal Japan exports from most of the world. Only the Dutch, tightly restricted to a single man-made island in Nagasaki Bay, would be allowed limited trade. To maintain order, he reinforced a rigid class structure. Samurai above peasants, peasants above artisans, artisans above merchants. Samurai were not to farm. Merchants could not wear silk. Everyone had their place. Social mobility was discouraged. The Tokugawa state believed in stability, not ambition. And yet, beneath this carefully arranged order, the seeds of contradiction were sown. Because it was the merchants, not the warriors, who began to accumulate real wealth. Peace made their services essential. Samurai, forbidden from commerce, became increasingly dependent on stipends and loans. Over the decades, many would become ceremonial figures, proud but impoverished, while the merchant class flourished in private. It was a slow erosion, quiet, undramatic. Ieyasu could not have foreseen it. Or perhaps he did. Perhaps he knew that no system endures forever, that what mattered was longevity, not perfection. He left behind no grand declarations, no emotional speeches. His final instructions were as pragmatic as his life. Burial in Niku at the Chushuji Shrine, under a cryptic title, Gongen, a manifestation of divine light. Pilgrims still climb the long stone stairs to visit his tomb. The shrine is quiet, the forests thick. It does not feel like the resting place of a conqueror. It feels careful, just like the man himself. It feels careful. The air in the Chushuji Shrine temple complex is still almost sacred. You hear your breath, you feel your pulse, and you sense the weight of centuries that passed beneath your feet. In the Ieyasu world, nothing was accidental. Every arrangement, every rule, built with intention and maintained with quiet vigilance. The tapestry of control. Imagine Ieyasu's government not as a monarchy but as a living tapestry. Its many thread samurai, farmers, artisans, merchants intertwined and held in place by unwritten contracts, social expectations, and subtle enforcement. The Bukeshahato, or Shwagane laws, created a codified set of rules for the warrior class. Samurai were banned from engaging in trade. They were expected to serve, preferably in peacetime, with martial arts practice and administrative roles. They could live only in prescribed districts, near but not within Edo Castle's walls, and the city shaped itself around these rules. Samurai districts like Yoshida and Konda became quieter zones, less commerce, more to. Meanwhile, the merchant districts Nihon Boshi Kanda, Asakusa buzzed with activity, regulated but alive. Edo's population soared to over 1 million by the early 18th century, supported by rice from Tohoku, silk from the inland, and artisan goods wood block prints, ceramics, lacquer ware made in that network of artisans you once served. The Genroku era, 1688 to 1704, was a time of flourishing culture. Kabuki theater, ukiyo-e prints, haiku poetry, and the smoky pleasure quarters designed, curiously, to preserve order by concentrating desire into carefully zoned districts. Ieyasu himself did not live to see this cultural bloom. He died in 1616, but his successors preserved stability, allowing culture to quietly rise like moss on stone walls. Personal discipline, public peace. Ieyasu's biggest legacy wasn't tea in castles or decrees, it was in teaching a new standard of behavior. He valued game and enduring hardship with dignity and was social harmony. These were not just ideals, they became behavioral laws. Samurai constrained speech, merchants deferred to orders, and every household adhered to curfew, neighborhood pacts, and the expectation of quiet compliance. You, the apprentice who sweeps by sunrise, delivers goods, carries water, live inside this structure. Your rituals grind forward. Respectful greeting, measured language, practiced silence. At home, your mother might light a small Buddhist lantern at dusk. You place it at the edge of the entryway. You bow, then you move to your futon folded pristine out of sight. Nearby, older neighbors talk softly about the next festival. No festival lasts more than a few days. Order returns quickly. Everything in Edo moves toward consensus, not defiance. Stability, not chaos. That is Ieyasu's legacy. When order brings change. Interestingly, Ieyasu's careful system eventually allowed what he might have feared: economic transformation. Merchants realigned wealth, often hidden from official eyes, and began sponsoring art, theater, and commerce. The samurai became bureaucrats. Some became scholars. The lines between classes softened quietly and by the mid-1700s, kabuki theaters had working-class attendance almost as high as elite spectating. Ukiyo-e pictures of the floating world portrayed geisha as actors and city life with bold color, not ashes of political content. The Genroku period's art forms traded propaganda for pleasure. All of this was possible because Ieyasu's vision created a long peace, no war, no famine of conquest, and predictable seasons. Under that surface, personal creativity rose like soup simmering in a covered pot. Leadership in layers. Let us return to Ieyasu's own leadership: less heroic gestures than calculated gestures. 1603 gains the title of shogun. 1605 hands power to his son but continues to govern in castle chambers. 1610-11 forces Daimyo to formally confirm their allegiance in Edo personally. 1612 enacts the Sankin-Katai system of alternate attendance. 1615 victor in the siege of Osaka, eliminating Toyotomi legacy. 1616 passes away peacefully, his final words emphasizing stability over expansion. At every step, decisions promoted continuity over ambition. He built no roads. He opened no seafaring ports. He wrote no poem. He lived in the shade of permanence, not the sunset of glory. Quiet reflections on power. What does this legacy feel like? If you pause to think, imagine you're standing in Edo Castle's outer garden. In front of you, a koi pond still except for hidden ripples. In the distance, Edo Bay glints under the sun. Ships move slowly. The rules governing the city: who can walk where, trade what, speak when, are beneath your feet, as quiet as bricks. That is how Ieyasu built Japan. From the visible to the invisible, from the explicit to the expected. His power was expressed not through war cries but through silence, certainty, and generational enforcement. You breathe in, you exhale, you feel small, perhaps, but steady, like the rest of Edo, like a reed bending in the breeze, not breaking, looking forward. By the time Ieyasu's descendants face the world, change is inevitable. Contact with Rangaku or Dutch learning trickles through. Western medicine, anesthesia, electricity whispers in the pages of imported books, and Japan must ask itself, can the carefully built tapestry of order survive curiosity? That question would eventually reshape the nation, but for now your world remains ordered, your day repeats, your bow continues, your silence endures, and your place in this tapestry is secure as long as you never challenge it. Mystery and meaning in the shadows of Edo. The night has deepened in Edo. Candles flicker behind the wooden slats of paper lanterns, casting long shadows that sway gently across rice paper screens. Somewhere a low drum sounds the hour, and all across the tightly ordered capital, a hush settles over tiled rooftops and narrow stone alleys. You're lying down now, eyes closed or half-lidded, listening to the quiet, listening for the echoes of things long past. This is not the part of history found in textbooks or timelines. This is the part felt in your bones, the part whispered from one apprentice to another, behind curtained stalls, or under the breath of an old priest after evening prayers. It's the part written between the lines of official scrolls. It's where the real magic lives. The hidden codes beneath the calm. Beneath the surface of Tokugawa Japan's harmony lay a quiet tension, one you could only feel if you were still enough. And listening, People often say Edo was a city of rules, and but it was also a city of subtle signs. The shape of a family crest painted on a lantern could determine who was allowed to pass through a gate. A certain style of kimono might whisper a quiet protest, coded in color or stitching. In the merchant quarters of Nihonbashi, shopkeepers used gentle metaphor to voice dissent or admiration. A folding fan with 3 golden circles might hint at loyalty to a once powerful clan. A lacquered box left open during a tea ceremony might suggest mourning for a past no longer safe to name aloud. The authorities looked for disorder, but the people spoke in symbols. It was a city of secrets, safe behind politeness, sacred places, quiet meanings. You've heard of the shrines and castles, but perhaps you haven't heard of the sacred garden hidden behind the Zizuji temple, where silence is kept not out of reverence but grief. Here, among small stone statues wearing red bibs, mothers once came to pray for lost children. Each tiny figure, called a jizo, carries a story untold. Some hold pinwheels, some wear knitted hats. All of them face east, toward a better next life. The path here is soft with moss. If you visit just after a rain, your feet sink gently into the earth. You hear nothing but the call of a distant nightbird and the soft rattle of a wind chime from the monks' quarters beyond the wall. This is a different kind of history, a memory left in stone, not scrolls. Ghosts and gentle superstitions. People of Edo were deeply spiritual but softly so, not in fiery sermons or declarations of faith. No, their belief lived in quiet customs. A mirror turned to the wall after a death, a coin placed under a sleeping child's pillow to keep away bad dreams, salt sprinkled before opening a new business, not for luck, but to cleanse the path. Even in samurai households, warriors who had never feared steel would hesitate to cut bamboo at night, believing it disturbed the yurei, the silent ghosts of the unremembered. It said the spirit of Lady Kasuga Ieyasu's favored nurse and political advisor still roams the southern corridors of Edo Castle, not with anger, but with quiet purpose, guiding, correcting, protecting. And in old inns along the Tokeda Road, travelers still sleep with a single sandal turned facing the door to signal they wish to return home safely. The library that wasn't a library deep in the hills of Kanneji. Beyond the formal temples and shrines, there's rumor of a room with no entrance. Scholars speak of a place where forbidden books were kept, not burned, not banned, but simply hidden. Scrolls on Western astronomy, manuscripts of Korean calligraphy, Dutch maps, herbal texts on poisons and cures, things too valuable to destroy, but too dangerous to acknowledge. Some call it the Library of Echoes. Its existence was never confirmed, but apprentices whisper of it still. They say the door only opens when no one is looking, that its shelves shift, like the tide, that if you listen carefully near the back walls of Kanneji, you can sometimes hear pages turning, though no one is there. Mystery, here, doesn't feel scary. It feels like being wrapped in a story bigger than you. The meaning of the floating world. And then there is Yukio, the floating world. To Westerners, it often means pleasure, red light districts, painted fans and laughter. But in the heart of Edo, it meant something softer. It was a recognition that all things are impermanent. Joy, sorrow, status, even memory, like mist on a pond, gone by morning. In tea houses near the Sumida River, poets would write haiku by candlelight, sipping sake and watching the city lights reflected in the dark water. Some believed those reflections were the only real version of the city, that the rest was illusion. And maybe they were right. What is more real than the moment you're in? The breath you're taking now. The soft hum of a voice guiding you through memories that are not yours, yet feel as though they could be. And so, you drift. You are not in danger here. There are no battles tonight. No earthquakes, no flames. Only the scent of cedar, the soft crackle of paper, and the memory of footsteps on a gravel path. You have wandered far into the quiet places, where meanings sleep beneath the surface, where truths whisper, not shout, and where your breath matches the rhythm of a city long gone but never lost. Let yourself drift now. Let your thoughts ripple like silken wind. The floating world welcomes you. Everything is calm, everything is still, and tomorrow will come. Gently, Whispers in the paper walls. The homes of Edo were made of paper and wood, not stone. Sound passed easily. Silence, then, became a skill, a form of etiquette. Children were taught to slide doors silently, not bang them. Footsteps were trained to fall gently, with the heel barely brushing the floorboards. Conversations in the evening were subdued, flowing like water over stones, soft, never forceful. In some districts, especially among samurai families, there were even known silence hours when speaking was considered rude, and all noise ceased except for the hiss of hot water or the rustle of tatami mats being laid out for sleep. To live in Edo was to move like smoke through your home, graceful, invisible, respectful of the space you shared with others. In the stillness, people learned to listen deeply, not just with ears, but with the body, to hear the emotions in the pause between words, to feel tension in a room before it was spoken aloud. This was not silence as absence. It was silence as presence. The fortune slip trees. You may have heard of omikuchi, the little paper fortunes tied to tree branches at Shinto shrines. But perhaps you didn't know that in Edo, there were entire hidden groves where these fortunes were never read aloud, only written. Late at night, young women and men would sneak to certain trees in Yushima or Ueno, carrying slips of paper under their sleeves. Some wrote questions to lost relatives. Others confessed secrets or longings they dared not say aloud. They tied them carefully to low branches, never looking back. Priests did not collect these slips. They were left to dissolve in the rain. Even now, visitors report finding fragments damp with dew, faint ink still visible. Names, hopes, farewells, they weren't meant to be found. But they wait, patiently, for someone quiet enough to understand. The mirror that remembers you. In one narrow street of old Edo, a winding lane behind the incense shops near Asaku stood a building with no signage. Inside was a single room, and in that room a single object, a bronze mirror. Legend held that it could show not just your face but your past lives. No one paid to enter. You had to be invited. Invitations arrived folded into the seams of your kimono or hidden in the crease of a borrowed book. No one knew who delivered them. It said that those who looked into the mirror too long would cry softly, not out of fear, but recognition, as if seeing something they had always known but forgotten. The building is long gone now, but sometimes historians mention it in footnotes. A lost room, a found self, a story left without conclusion. Maps of nowhere among the merchants of Edo. Cartography became a quiet obsession, but not just maps of places, maps of the invisible. Some drew spiritual diagrams of the city, where the wind felt heavier, where time seemed to slow. Others mapped memory, how their feet remembered the city differently in spring than in winter. One famous artist, Hiroshige, was known for walking the city each evening and sketching only what the moon lit. His prints became known as tsuki, or moon pictures. They depicted alleys no longer found, doors no longer there. Today, scholars debate whether some of the places he painted ever truly existed. Maybe they were only memories, or maybe they were real, and we have simply forgotten how to look. The untranslatable, so much of Edo's daily life was never recorded, not because it was unimportant, but because it was too ordinary to mention. But hidden in those ordinary things are the deepest layers of meaning. There is no single word in English for the sound of wind through pine trees after midnight. In Japanese, it's been evoked in poetry for over 1,000 years. There is no simple translation for the feeling of wrapping a warm furoshiki cloth around a bowl of soup, or the comfort of sitting by an irori hearth in winter as steam rises slowly from green tea. There is no perfect term for the specific melancholy of a boat lantern flickering on the Sumida River, just a hush, just a feeling. And in that hush you begin to understand the truth of Edo, that history isn't only names and dates, it's gestures, rituals, rooms where light falls a certain way. It's the texture of linen, the smell of ink, the echo of a gate closing at dusk. It's the part of life that never shouts but always stays, a city dreaming of itself. Even in its prime, Edo was dreaming of what it had been in, what it could become. Poets imagined past lives as carpenters building castles that would one day house their own descendants. Gardeners planted trees they would never live to see reach full bloom. Storytellers spun tales of forgotten gods who still walked among the people, disguised as travelers or children. The city, in its silence, seemed to be listening to the future, listening to the past, breathing quietly, just like you. Even now, beneath the concrete of modern Tokyo, some say you can feel it, the quiet rhythm of a city that once trained its people to be invisible and kind, attentive and small, gentle to the world and themselves. It isn't gone, it's just sleeping, waiting for someone still enough, slow enough, to remember. The morning in the noble quarter of Edo arrives, not with clamor, but with hush. It is not the voice of urgency that wakes the great houses, but the muted grace of sunlight slipping through paper, sheiji panels, painting the tatami mats with latticed shadows. You are not a peasant, not today. Today you are a guest in the household of a mid-ranking Hatamoto, a direct vassal of the shogun. His home is a place of quiet pride, with gardens enclosed by bamboo fences, a curved bridge over a shallow carp pond, and a row of stepping stones that glisten with morning dew. There is no wind, only stillness, and the crisp scent of cypress wood and steamed rice. A maid walks past your chamber, her bare feet silent on the wooden veranda. In her hands, a shallow ceramic tray with 2 porcelain bowls, warm water for washing, and thin, bitter tea. Not breakfast, not yet. The day unfolds slowly here, like the unfurling scroll of a hand-painted screen. Outside, the inner garden shimmers gently under a silvery veil of mist. It is tended not for color but for balance. The moss against the rock, the curve of the pine branches against the raked sand. A crane lands at the pond's edge and folds itself into stillness. Somewhere in the distance, the melodic echo of a shakuhachi flute blends with the murmur of a nearby stream. The household stirs gently. Male retainers, all wearing subdued indigo or gray hakama, begin their routines. Some polish blades that will never be drawn, others clean inkstones and ready scrolls for correspondence. You hear the soft scratch of calligraphy brushes, the faint click of an abacus, the dry rustle of silk sleeves as a message is folded, sealed, and bowed over before being handed off to a runner. These are not warriors preparing for battle, but bureaucrats in armor. Samurai whose swords have become symbols more than tools. Peace has dulled their edges, but not their posture. Breakfast, when it arrives, is elegant and silent. A tray of small dishes, grilled river fish with a hint of citrus, pickled plum, a mound of white rice that steams faintly in a lacquered bowl. You eat slowly, as tradition dictates, while outside, a retainer offers a morning poem to the master of the house. Something about the scent of early chrysanthemums, and the fleeting melancholy of autumn. The master, still robed, nods slowly. He does not speak much, not before tea. Your host is descended from a minor branch of an old clan. Once, they held power over distant provinces, but now they serve the shogunate in Edo, quietly upholding protocol. His day is not governed by desire, but by expectation. Meetings, rituals, accounting. Even leisure is scheduled. You follow him to a formal reception chamber where he performs an archery kata alone, in near silence, not for competition, not for defense, but for discipline. Every motion, from the step of his bare foot to the gentle release of the bowstring, is a gesture in an ancient language you do not speak. The house itself breathes with memory. It was built after the Great Fire of Meraki in 1657. A blaze so enormous it reshaped the city's wooden heart. Thousands perished, and from the ashes rose new codes. Wider streets, stricter zoning, fireproof earthen walls for the homes of the wealthy. Your host's home is one such design, rebuilt in accordance with the new ordinances, complete with hidden water tanks in the inner courtyard and a tiled roof that glimmers in the midday sun. By noon, the pace of the household slows again. Afternoon in Edo's noble district is a time for poetry, music, and the arts. In a rear chamber filled with the scent of sandalwood, a young daughter of the house practices on a koto, her long sleeves trailing gently as her fingers pluck a slow, mournful melody. Her mother embroiders beside her, the needle rising and falling like a breathing tide, threading gold into black silk. You are offered another cup of tea, this one whisked with care, emerald green and slightly bitter. Conversation is minimal, eyes lower, silence is honored. As the shadows lengthen, your host retreats to his writing chamber. There he composes a letter to a distant cousin in Kyoto, a page of elegant brushstrokes, the ink faintly glistening. He folds it carefully, tucks it into a silken envelope, and hands it to a messenger kneeling respectfully at the door. The world, for all its quiet, never stops moving. And then, preparations for the evening begin. There is to be a modest gathering tonight. No raucous drinking, no wild laughter. This is not a merchant's home. The samurai class entertains with restraint. A few guests arrive shortly before dusk, their arrival heralded only by the distant crunch of sand under straw sandals and the soft clapping of a servant's hand to summon the gate attendant. Inside, lanterns are lit, their paper walls cast a golden glow across the room, flickering slightly in the breeze that drifts through the open sliding doors. The meal is served in courses, kazeki, an art form disguised as sustenance. Each dish is a composition of flavor and color, seasonal and precise. A sprig of maple beside a slice of grilled eel. A soup brewed from dried kelp and shavings of bonito steak is poured sparingly, in small ceramic cups, passed with both hands as a sign of humility. The talk is subdued. Topics flow from the recent poetry contests to the peculiar habits of a visiting Dutch merchant. There is laughter, soft and fleeting. Few of the older guests reminisce about their youth during the Genroku era, a time of relative abundance and excess, long before the current frugality. Your host listens more than he speaks. By nightfall, the guests drift away like mist, their sandals crunching softly on the gravel path. The household begins to fold into rest. Shoji doors slide closed. Tatami mats are resmoothed. Lamps are dimmed. You are escorted to your chamber by a servant holding a lantern shaped like a chrysanthemum. The bedding is laid out with quiet care. A futon layered with warm cotton, a thin buckwheat pillow, and a folded kimono set nearby in case of chill. Outside, the garden pond reflects the moon in perfect stillness. A frog croaks once, then falls silent. As you lie down, the house returns to its nightly rhythm, a cadence of silence, of sighing wood, of the distant rustle of pine trees in the breeze. Sleep in Edo is not taken lightly. It is a ritual of its own, a submission to the transience of all things. And here, under the weight of silence, history in soft-woven cotton, you are carried gently into dreams. The moon rises slowly over the rooftops of Edo. Its pale light trickles across the curved eaves of the samurai compound, catching on roof tiles slick with evening dew. The household lies quiet, its corridors emptied of footsteps, its gardens hushed and still, like a great breath being held in the dark. Inside your chamber, the faint scent of hinoki wood lingers. A charcoal brazier glows gently in the corner, throwing soft heat into the room. You lie on a futon so finely padded it seems to float above the tatami. Your limbs are heavy, but your mind drifts. You are still in Edo, but night in the city brings its own transformation. In the distance, temple bells toll once, then twice, the hour of the dog. Around the city, paper lanterns begin to wink out, each one a dim heartbeat falling into slumber. But some lights remain, especially in the Yoshiwara, far from the stately calm of your host's estate. The licensed pleasure quarter of Edo pulses with life. It is a different world, hidden behind high walls and moats, reached only by the hourglass-shaped Nihonbashi Bridge. Merchants, actors, poets, and even lower-ranking samurai cross into its gates in disguise. Their sandals crunch the gravel paths as they seek brief escape. But here, in the noble district, sleep is a virtue, a necessary passage to the next day's formality. Your mind wanders back to the day's conversations. There had been talk of a new kabuki performance being mounted in the theater district south of the river. A cousin of your host had mentioned a rising onagata, a male actor who specialized in playing female roles, who had stunned audiences with his delicate portrayal of a grieving widow. You remember the subtle excitement in the man's voice, tempered immediately by the return to composure. Even enthusiasm must wear a mask. Sleep begins to take you, but before it does, memory returns. Another scene unfolds. It is winter now, though only lightly. The pine trees in the garden wear coats of snow, and the pond is edged with ice. Yet inside the compound, warmth flickers gently from brazier to brazier. You are invited to observe the New Year's rituals. A purification is performed in the garden, with salt and sakaki branches and a slow, solemn bow toward the ancestral shrine. The servants wear new aprons. The children are robed in bright silks. On the table lies mochi, pounded, sticky and white. A crane is painted on a scroll in the main hall, a symbol of long life. The lord of the house performs a quiet tea ceremony for his closest retainers. The movements are precise, reverent, slow. It is not for taste, it is for presence. Later, a storyteller is welcomed to the home, one of the few entertainments permitted among the more refined classes. He wears a plain kimono, speaks softly, with deep pauses. His tale is of a fox spirit who falls in love with a human boy and weeps snowflakes when he is gone. The guests nod quietly. Some wipe their eyes. The seasons pass and still you remain. You visit the castle gates of Edo-ji, though only from the outside. Towering and stern, the gates are guarded with ceremonial precision. Commoners lower their heads as they pass. You catch sight of a high-ranking official being carried past in a lacquered palanquin, his face hidden behind a fan. All that effort to maintain the fiction of invisibility. In the spring, the cherry trees bloom along the riverbanks. The entire city softens. Petals fall like snow, and the scent of plum and sakura hangs in the air. Even the stern-faced samurai pause beneath the branches, holding still just long enough to let the beauty touch them. You attend a hanami gathering, a flower viewing with your host's extended family. Mats are laid out under the trees, sake is poured, poems are composed, inked onto paper that is then tied to the branches with thin cords. Some laugh, some cry, some simply watch the petals fall. Edo is not a city of noise, not here. Its luxury is silence, its pride is composure, its dream is order. And yet beneath it all you feel the fragile hum of something deeper, a longing, perhaps, or a shared recognition that peace is always temporary, that beneath the silk there is always steel, that behind every folding screen a shadow waits. But for tonight, the shadow stays hidden. You close your eyes. The crane calls once more, and the city sleeps. It is autumn now. The cicadas have fallen silent, replaced by the rustling of wind through dry leaves. The maple trees in the hills around the city burn with color, crimson, amber, ochre. Even the smallest gardens seem touched by fire. In the compound, the sliding screens are opened in the morning to let in the crisp air. You rise to the scent of roasted chestnuts and the distant sound of a flute. Somewhere nearby, a temple school recites its lessons. The chant is steady, rhythmic like the heartbeat of the city. Your host takes you on a slow walk through the outer edges of Edo. The streets are quieter now, more contemplative. At a small shrine, women offer rice cakes shaped like rabbits. A priest sweeps the path with slow, deliberate motions. Each step seems measured against eternity. In the evening, the lamps are lit earlier. You dine by candlelight, watching the shadows move across the rice paper walls. A dish of kabaka squash is placed before you. Tender, sweet, pickled ginkgo nuts. A soup with chestnut dumplings. The flavors are warm, grounding. A taste of the earth preparing for sleep. You wrap yourself in a cotton kimono lined with wool. Outside, the wind rustles the bamboo fence. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks once, then silence. You are content. And so it comes to a close. The year in Edo draws its breath in. The air sharpens. The fires dim. Life slows. You think of all that you've seen, the rituals, the gardens, the actors and storytellers, the samurai and their silent grace, the shopkeepers with their measured bows, the lanterns swaying in the night. This city, this peace, it is not loud, it does not shout, it endures, like the ink on a scroll, like the hush before a bell. You lie back, the futon holds you gently. Somewhere far off, a nightingale calls. There is nothing more to see tonight. Only dreams remain. Close your eyes and let Edo fade. Sleep well, not as a warrior, nor a merchant, but as a quiet observer, unseen, yet always welcome. You have walked among lanterns, listened to the hush of the tea ladle, shared rice beneath blooming branches, and rested under the steady breath of paper walls. And through it all, you have endured. You have survived a period of time in Edo era, not through sword or struggle, but by stillness, by presence, by allowing yourself to simply be.
The past is quiet now, faded into the dark, like candlelight at the edge of sleep. Thank you for listening. If this brought you any calm or comfort tonight, you're welcome to like the video or subscribe for more gentle journeys like this one. And if you're still awake, leave a comment. I read every one. Let me know how far into the story you made it, or simply share a thought before sleep takes over. Good night, and rest well.